To understand why recovery became so difficult, you have to start with a specific architectural decision buried inside Kinesis data streams. Each front-end server in the Kinesis fleet maintained a live operating system thread for every other server in that same fleet. One thread per peer, opened continuously, to exchange messages about which stream shards lived where. Those threads were the mechanism behind a gossip-like protocol. Front-end servers continuously processed messages from their peers to share and cache a map of shard locations, supplementing data pulled from a membership microservice and from DynamoDB. When the fleet was small, that multiplication was manageable. What nobody had yet confronted was what would happen when the fleet grew large enough to push each server's thread count toward the limits the operating system would tolerate. Every routine capacity bump was quietly piling up structural debt in the thread model, a cost nobody saw until the fleet finally crossed the line. The system carried a hidden n-squared thread explosion from day one, and scaling up finally pushed us into its boundary. When new servers joined the front-end fleet, every existing server detected the new peers and immediately attempted to open threads to connect with each of them. Here's the shape of the problem. Growth doesn't rise in a straight line. It jumps in a square. Every new server hits every existing one at the same time. The added servers pushed existing front-end servers past the operating system's hard limit on concurrent threads, leaving each one unable to complete the peer connections it needed to function. As each front-end server discovered the newly added peers, it attempted to allocate additional OS threads, and the configured thread ceiling, a fixed number set in the operating system, was breached across the fleet. In the early hours of November 25, 2020, AWS engineers began a routine operation, adding capacity to the Kinesis front-end fleet serving the US East 1 region. The process started at 2:44 a.m. Pacific time and ran for just over an hour, completing at 3:47 a.m. By AWS's own account, it was a relatively small addition, not an aggressive scale-out, not an emergency intervention, just an incremental expansion of a fleet that had handled such changes before. What made this addition consequential was not its scale, but its timing. It was enough to push thread counts on the existing front-end servers past what the operating system would allow. When the operating system's thread limit was crossed, the consequences were immediate and uniform. Every front-end server in the fleet began failing to construct its shard map cache. The shard map is not optional infrastructure. It is the prerequisite for every routing decision a front-end server makes. Without a completed shard map, the caches that remained were, in AWS's own description, useless, leaving servers holding a map that pointed nowhere. No server could direct an incoming request to the correct back-end cluster. The architecture turned a simple resource limit into a fleet-wide failure. The same design that linked every server to every peer guaranteed they'd all hit the ceiling together. Because each Kinesis front-end server required a valid shard map to route any request at all, the fleet degraded as a whole rather than shedding a single broken node. There were no survivors left to carry the load. The entire fleet began failing in unison. At 5:15 a.m. Pacific Time, the first alarms fired for errors on Kinesis read and write operations. Kinesis fed into CloudWatch, Cognito, and Lambda, each of them dependent on its availability to function normally. By 6:15 a.m., Lambda invocation errors had begun, driven by memory contention from CloudWatch metric buffering, as metrics that could no longer be flushed accumulated in memory. The failure cascaded in layers. Kinesis broke first. CloudWatch lost its metric channel, and the teams trying to diagnose the outage were staring at dashboards going dark in real time. Cognito mitigation efforts did not begin until 10:15 a.m., nearly 5 hours after the first alarms, and the service would not return to normal until 2:18 p.m., roughly 9 hours into the incident. Kinesis itself would not fully recover until 10:23 p.m., approximately 17 hours after the first alarm at 5:15 a.m. For nearly 90 minutes between 3:47 and 5:15 a.m., what appeared on dashboards was malformed routing data, the downstream consequence of something already broken upstream, still undetected. By mid-morning, the engineers working the incident had not yet found a single answer. They had found a list of them. At 7:51 a.m. Pacific Self-Time, the team had narrowed the root cause to a couple of candidates and determined that whichever one proved correct, the remedy would be the same: a full restart of the front-end fleet. They realized they'd have to restart the entire fleet before they even knew what they were recovering from. The team committed to a long and careful process while the diagnosis was still unresolved. When the answer finally came, it reframed everything that had happened in the hours before. At 9:39 a.m. PST City, the team confirmed that the problem was not memory pressure, as some hypotheses had suggested, but thread limit exhaustion. The new capacity had pushed every server in the fleet past the maximum number of threads permitted by the operating system configuration. It looked like a caching glitch on the surface, but underneath, the operating system was the one drawing the line. The instinct in any system failure is to restore capacity as fast as possible, bring everything back all at once. But restarting servers too quickly recreated the exact thread pressure that had caused the failure in the first place. The reason was structural. Every new server that came online immediately attempted to open connections to every other server in the fleet. Each restart, rather than relieving pressure, added a fresh burst of connection load across the entire topology. In this case, going faster didn't fix anything. It just replayed the original failure across the entire fleet. The engineers had their diagnosis. Now, they needed a recovery that would not repeat the collapse. AWS chose to first shrink the fleet, giving the surviving servers room to rebuild clean, complete shard maps without thread pressure overwhelming the process. Once the surviving fleet had stabilized, servers were added back at a rate of a few hundred per hour, with engineers watching thread counts on each batch before introducing more capacity. Each batch had to demonstrate that shard map construction had completed before the next wave came online, a deliberate, measurable gate built into the restart sequence. The restart rate limit was the recovery. Without it, every attempt to bring servers back would have snapped the fleet right back to zero. The first front-end servers successfully returned to handling traffic at 10:07 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, roughly 2 hours after the restart decision was made. Dependent services recovered in sequence as healthy Kinesis capacity accumulated. Lambda errors resolved at 10:36 a.m. Cognito returned to normal at 2:18 p.m., and the majority of ECS and EKS issues cleared by 4:15 p.m. Kinesis fully returned to normal service at 10:23 p.m. PST, approximately 17 hours after the first alarms fired at 5:15 a.m. When a system's recovery speed is set by hardware alone, the underlying topology is still dictating terms, just silently, through the failure that follows. The peer connection fan-out graph sets the thread pressure for every returning server. That graph, not CPU or memory, is what actually governs safe restart speed. If you design recovery around hardware alone, topology becomes the hidden constraint, and you only meet it when everything breaks again. The lesson is simple. Build restart limits into the procedure before the crisis, not during it. Topology first, hardware second.